Okay, so I want you to picture a world that is perfect, but I don't mean perfect in like a beautiful paradise kind of way.
No, not that kind of perfect.
I mean proper. I mean polished. I mean just terribly, suffocatingly dull. You know, a place where the grass is always cut to the exact same height, where tea is served at the exact same minute every single day.
And a place where curiosity is a problem.
It's more than a problem. That little spark inside you that asks, what if, isn't just discouraged, it's scolded. It's treated like a bad habit, you know, like chewing with your mouth open.
You're painting a very clear picture of Victorian England right out of the gate here. It's a world of rigid order.
Well, that's the setting, right? It's a world where imagination is something that just, it sleeps. It's buried beneath this heavy weight of rules and etiquette. Now, usually if I said a scene like that, you'd probably expect we're about to discuss some dense dystopian novel or, I don't know, a critique of modern corporate culture.
Right, something heavy and serious.
But we aren't. We are talking about a story that every single person listening to this right now thinks they know. You've definitely seen the Disney movie with the singing flowers, probably read the abridged version when you were 6.
Oh, for sure. You know the pop culture references.
Exactly. The White Rabbit, the Mad Hatter, all of it. But here is the thing, and this is the whole point of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We are not talking about a children's.
No, not at all. If you really, really peel back the layers on this thing, this story is not for, it's for anyone who has ever felt like they're losing their...
Which is pretty much everyone at some point.
Exactly. We are, of course, talking about Alice in Wonderland, but we are looking at it through a very specific, very intense lens today. We're doing a deep dive into the analysis from Nostalgic Symphony in their video, Alice in Wonderland, A Journey into the Human Mind.
And the whole premise is, it's pretty radical. It suggests that this narrative isn't a fairy tale.
No. The video calls it a philosophical descent. It's a psychological map.
I love that phrase, a psychological map. Because when you read the book as an adult, or even just think about it, it feels frantic, it feels stressful. And this source material, it frames this entire narrative as a mission to decode the symbols of our own minds.
Yes. It's not passive entertainment.
No, we aren't just watching some girl chase a rabbit down a hole. We are talking about understanding our anxieties, our shifting identity, and that really weird, uncomfortable space between logic and chaos.
That space we all live in, whether we admit it or not.
Right. And the analysis opens with this incredible line that it gave me chills. It describes the start of the story as happening once upon a breath between dreaming and waking.
That is just a beautiful phrase. And it sets the stakes immediately. Just think about that specific state of, that moment, right? When you're just drifting off or maybe just waking up. Mm-hmm. The rational guardrails of your mind you're completely vulnerable. The logic centers of your brain, they haven't really fired up yet to tell you what is and isn't possible.
It's when the weird stuff can get in.
It's when the weird stuff is already in. And Nostalgic Symphony points out that Alice starts her journey in this world of, like we said, rigid order. She's bored, but it's not just, I have nothing to do, boredom.
What kind is it then?
It's a spiritual kind of boredom. It's a soul-level boredom. She is starved.
Starved for what exactly?
Starved for wonder. For meaning, she's living in a world where the walls of reason are absolute. Everything has a label. Everything has its proper place. And I think a lot of listeners can relate to that feeling of being overwhelmed, not by chaos, but by order.
Oh, 100%. By schedule, by notification, by the constant demand to be logical and productive every single second of the day.
Yes. It's the feeling of living on autopilot. You wake up, you do the commute, you do the job, you eat the dinner, you go to sleep, you do it again. It's efficient, sure.
But is it alive? Is it really living?
That's the question. And that's why this deep dive is going to be a little bit destructive. We're going to have to ruin the innocent view of this story for everyone listening. We have to.
Why do we have to?
Because if you think this is just about a girl having a whimsical, silly afternoon, you miss the entire point. You miss the profundity of it. We are watching a psyche dismantle itself in real time.
A dismantling. That sounds ominous.
It is ominous, but it's also necessary. The source argues that Wonderland is a mirror. It's a mirror held up to society's so-called logic. It's there to show us that the things we think are sane, our etiquette, our obsession with status, our rigid timelines, they might actually be the craziest things.
So it's an inversion.
It's a total inversion. So no, this isn't whimsy. It's existentialism disguised as a tea party.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning then, the departure. We have Alice. She's sitting on the riverbank. The source describes it as a golden sky with thoughts floating like dandelion seed. It sounds peaceful, but you just said she's starved.
She is. She's trying to read a book with no pictures and no conversations in it. And in her world, that's what maturity is supposed to be. Dense, dry, boring facts, no imagination allowed.
It's learning without joy.
Precisely. And then, in the middle of this perfect, boring after the cat rep. Now, in the cartoon, he's just this frantic little guy with a trumpet. He's kind of cute.
Yeah, he's a functionary.
But Nostalgic Symphony describes him very differently. They describe his appearance as the intrusion of the extraordinary into the profoundly ordinary.
I really like that distinction because it's not just that he's a talking rabbit. It's that he's a talking rabbit with a schedule.
Right. I mean, just think about the sheer absurdity of that image for a second. You are sitting in your mundane life. Maybe you're checking emails or scrolling on your... Suddenly, something impossible happens right in front of you. The rabbit represents that spark, that call to adventure.
But look at the detail. This is what the source really zooms in on. He's wearing a waistcoat. He's muttering to himself. He has a pocket watch.
Why does a rabbit...
I always just figured it was to make him look fancy for the story.
It's so much more than that. The source argues the waistcoat represents the attempt to maintain social order even when you are a wild animal. It's the armor of civilization. This magical, impossible creature is just as stressed out about being late as any human.
So he's not entirely free from the rules of her world.
Not at all. He represents the call to something deeper, yes, but he also brings his own anxiety with him. He's a bridge between the two worlds. And Alice, she follows him without hesitation. It says she answers.
She doesn't stop to think, wait, is this safe? Should I be chasing a rabbit into a hole?
Nope, she just goes, the pull of the unknown is stronger than the fear, which I think says a lot about just how starved.
And this is where I really want to slow down, because the description of the fall in our source material, it's wild. It completely changed how I see that entire scene.
Me too. It's a crucial point.
The source says it wasn't a fall through space. It was a fall through herself.
This is the central concept right here. If you just visualize a physical fall, like falling down a well, you're missing the entire psychological. This is an internal collapse. She is tumbling past objects, clocks, teacups, books, mirrors.
And these aren't just random props.
Not at all. Think about what those objects represent. Let's unpack that.
Okay, so clocks are obviously time. Teacups are
Yeah.
domestic rich, social order.
Yes, politeness, ceremony, books are knowledge, the kind of knowledge her world values, and mirrors.
Mirrors are self.
Exactly. So as she falls through herself, she's literally falling past all the structures to define her reality. She's tumbling past the things that made her Alice. The source says she is entering the deep, mysterious corridors of the subconscious.
It's a dissolution of the ego.
A complete one. The walls of reason are melting away as she falls.
You know, there's that detail in the book, I think it's in the book, where she grabs a jar of orange marmalade off a shelf as she's falling.
Yeah.
And she's disappointed because it's empty. I always thought that was just a weird, quirky little detail.
It is, but it's a brilliant one. It's not random at all.
Why? What does it mean?
Because it shows that even in the middle of a total psychological collapse, a part of her is still looking for sustenance from the old. She grabs the jar, a symbol of preserved sweetness, of domestic comfort, and it's empty.
The old world has nothing left to give her.
It's a dead end. There's no comfort there anymore. She has to put it back. She has to keep falling. There's no turning back.
That is actually a kind of terrifying image when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Falling past your own memories and habits and realizing they're all empty containers.
It's the ultimate leap of faith. And the source mentions that when she finally lands, the walls of reason are completely gone. She's in a new place entirely.
In a new state of being, really.
Precisely. And when she lands, the source describes the environment perfect. Nothing was as it should. It says the air itself shimmered with nonsense. But here's the crucial distinction, the analysis. And if listeners take one thing away from this part, it really should be this. This isn't just random weirdness.
It's not chaos for the sake of chaos.
Exactly. The source is very clear. It says Wonderland is the theater of her own mind.
The theater of her own mind. Okay, so that implies that everything she sees, every creature she meets, is a projection, right? A part of her.
It implies that she is literally walking through the landscape of her own sight. In this place, logic is a trick. It doesn't work. And emotion rules with laughter and madness. It flips the real world completely on its head.
Because in the Victorian world she comes from, logic is king and emotion is something to be suppressed.
Yes. And here, in her subconscious, logic is the joke and emotion is the absolute monarch.
The source brings up the physical absurdity of this world to prove that point. You know, things like her tears literally forming an ocean, or a piece of cake making you grow taller than the trees.
And that's not just magic.
It's like the physics of the world are reacting directly to our internal state.
That's a great way to put it. The source notes that this landscape mirrors the landscape of dreams where the soul's in riddle. So let's really look at the growing and shrink. When a cake makes you big or a fan makes you small, it's not magic. The source suggests it's psychosomatic.
Psychosomatic. You mean like when you get a stomach ache because you're nervous about a presentation.
Exactly that, but on a macro physical scale. Think about how you feel when you are humiliated or embarrassed. You feel small. You want to disappear.
You want to shrink.
And in Wonderland, that feeling becomes a physical reality. You literally shrink. Or think about when you are angry or indignant or full of pride. You feel like you're taking up the whole room. You feel massive.
In Wonderland, you grow until your head hits the ceiling.
It is a place where meaning and madness intertwine. Because the physical world is instantly and dramatically obeying the emotional world, there's no filter.
Okay, so she's navigating this theater of her mind, growing, she's shrinking, totally unstable, and then she runs into maybe the most frustrating character in the entire literary canon, the caterpillar.
The caterpillar.
I have to admit, as a kid, I just found him so rude. He's dismissive, he's blowing smoke in her face.
But the source describes him lounging on a mushroom, exhaling smoke that curls into question marks. That visual is so powerful.
It really is. But it's his dialogue that's the core of it. He asks that one ultimate question, who are you?
And notice how the source points out that this is not a polite introduction. It's not, hi, I'm the caterpillar, what's your name? It is the eternal question of identity itself. It is an aggressive existential confrontation.
And Alice, she can't answer it. The source makes a huge deal about this. She literally stammers. She says, I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times.
That line is just heartbreaking. Really sit with it. I know who I was when I got up this morning.
I think we've all felt that, haven't we? You wake up and everything is normal, and then you get a phone call or you get some bad news or you have a massive fight with your partner, and by dinner time you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself.
You feel like a stranger in your own life.
Totally.
That is the fluidity of self that nostalgic symphony is talking about here. The source decodes this psychological symbolism of her growing and shrinking. It argues that Alice is suffering from a complete loss of definition. She is the fragile ego desperately trying to define itself. Chaos.
And the caterpillar's just poking at that fragility.
And the expert insight from the source is that we don't know what shape our soul has taken from one moment to the next. Our identity is not this fixed, solid thing we think.
So the caterpillar isn't just being a jerk for the sake of it.
No, not at all. The source actually calls him a spiritual.
He seems pretty condescending for a teacher.
Well, the best teachers often are, right?
Yeah.
Especially in certain Zen traditions. He is forcing her to sit with the discomfort. He's not giving her an easy answer. Look at what he is. He's a caterpillar.
Okay.
Biologically, what is a caterpillar's destiny?
To turn into a butterfly.
Right. But to do that, it has to enter a chrysalis and completely dissolve. A caterpillar doesn't just sprout wings. It turns into a nutrient goo. It completely disintegrates itself before it reassembles into something new.
So he's the master of transformation.
He is the master of transformation, and he sits on a mushroom, fungus that literally grows from decay, and he challenges her. He's telling her, essentially, if you change depending on your mood, if you change depending on your size, then what is the you that remains constant? What's left when all that is...
Wow. He's forcing her to find the center, to find the part of her that doesn't change, even when the world around her and inside her is melting.
Exactly. And she's not ready yet. She can't do it. She gets defensive. She tries to recite poems and be a good girl to prove she's still the Alice she was. Come out all wrong. Her memory is failing her.
She has been stripped of her social identity.
Completely, which leaves her vulnerable and ready for the next phase of the journey. And this is the part that I think gives a lot of people the most anxiety. We're talking about the crisis of time.
Yes. We meet the white rabbit again, and then we stumble into the mad tea party.
This is the axis of anxiety and depression right here.
That is a very heavy way to frame a tea. But let's look at the rabbit. We've met him, but now we see him in his element, and the source identifies him specifically as the personification of anxiety.
And just look at his behavior. He's constantly moving. He is muttering to himself. He is checking that watch over and over. He's terrified of the Duchess. He's terrified of the Queen. The source says he represents the specifically human fear of running out of...
The fear of running out of time. That just, it hits hard. We really are the only species that does this to ourselves, aren't we?
I think so. A dog is never late. A tree is never late. Sun is never late for its own rising. Only humans are late. We've invented this abstract concept of linear time, and then we have completely enslaved.
So the rabbit is that voice in our heads.
He is that part of Alice and that part of you and me that is constantly checking the clock, checking emails, convinced that some disaster is looming if we aren't productive, if we aren't on time. He is the very definition of the inability to be present because he is always, always leaning into the next moment. He's never here.
But then you get the absolute flip side of that coin with the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, the Tea Party. The source describes it as a frozen moment in time at Eternal 6.0.
This is such a brilliant analysis by the source. If the rabbit is perpetually running out of time, the Hatter is stuck in it. He has too much of it.
Why is he stuck, though? I always forget the reason.
Well, the text says that he quarreled with time. Time is actually personified in the story as a hymn. The Hatter tried to sing a song at a concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and the Queen screamed that he was murdering the time.
Off with his head.
Well, no, but time took offense, and so time stopped for him as a punishment. Now it's always 6.0. It's always tea time.
Which, sounds great in theory. Who doesn't love tea and cake? But in practice, it's a living nightmare. The source calls it a frozen moment.
It's a hellscape, a psychological prison. Think about it. If it's always 6.0, you never finish the tea, you never wash the dishes, you never go to sleep, you just keep moving around the table to a clean place, but you're dragging the mess with you.
The source argues this represents the human condition of being imprisoned by our own ritual.
It's both ceremony and chaos, as the source puts it. The Tea Party is a rebellion against meaning. They ask riddles that have no answer.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
Exactly. And Alice, bless her heart, she tries to figure it out. She tries to use logic, and the Hatter basically laughs in her face. There is no answer. It's a nonsensical question.
It's pure weaponized absurdity.
But it's a specific kind of absurdity. It's the absurdity of social etiquette when it's been stripped of all its purpose. They're being polite, they're offering wine that isn't there, they're making small talk, but they are trapped in this loop forever.
It's like a bug in the code of reality.
It is. The source suggests this illustrates the horror of living life ruled by the clock, even when the clock is stopped. It poses a question to the listener. You. Where are the tables in your life where time does not move?
That's a deep question. Where are we just going through the motion?
Right. Is it a job where you do the same thing every single day with no real result? Is it a relationship where you have the same exact argument every Friday night? That's the Mad Tea Party. You're just moving down the table looking for a clean cup, but it's just the same dirty tea set over and over and over again.
And the Hatter says that time has turned against him. It feels like such a betrayal.
It is. The Hatter represents the trauma of stagnation. The rabbit represents the trauma of rushing. They are two sides of the same coin. Both are slaves to time, just in different ways.
So everyone in Wonderland seems to be suffering from something. The rabbit is anxious. The Hatter is stuck in this traumatic loop. Alice is completely confused. But there was one character who actually seems to be having a pretty good time with it all.
The Cheshire.
The source calls him an enigma. And he is. He's visually the coolest. That floating grin is iconic. But he's also the only one who seems to understand what's going on, or at least isn't bothered by it.
The cat is special. While everyone else in Wonderland is completely trapped in their own neurosis, rabbit in anxiety, the Hatter in trauma, the Queen in rage, the cat stands outside of it. He floats above it, literally.
So what does he represent?
The source identifies him as the symbol of...
Okay, why intuition?
Because intuition isn't linear. It's not logical. It isn't something you can grab hold of or put in a box. It fades in and out. It appears when you need it most, and it vanishes the second you try to examine it too closely with your rational.
That's the cat. He's there, then he's just ahead, then he's nothing but a smile.
You can't pin him down. And he drops the most famous line of the entire book, which I think is quoted on, a million t-shirts, but is very rarely understood.
We're all mad here.
I'm mad, you're mad. And Alice pushes back, of course. She's offended. She says, how do you know I'm mad? And he says, you must be or you wouldn't have come here.
And the source takes that line and treats it like a philosophical bombshell. It says this one sentence reviews the nature of reality itself.
It's a total paradigm shift.
How so? That seems like a big claim.
The source argues that the cat is teaching Alice that madness and sanity are separated only by perception. That's it. In the Victorian world, sanity means repressing your emotions and following the rules. In Wonderland, madness is the baseline state.
So the universe itself is chaotic.
Exactly. And the cat is telling her that it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to.
And trying to force it to make sense is the actual problem. That's the real madness.
That is the real madness. Alice is suffering because she is walking through a dream, through her subconscious, trying to apply the rules of a text. She's getting frustrated that the flamingo she's using as a croquet mallet won't stay straight. She's annoyed that the Hatter speaks in riddle. The cat is the only one who just smiles.
Why does he smile?
Because he accepts the absurdity. He smiles at life's absurdity. He is the stoic of Wonderland. He's the only one who realizes that control is a complete illusion. If the world is crazy, the only sane response is to grin and float.
So trying to force logic upon a chaotic universe is the definition of insanity.
That's what the cat is teaching her. He's basically saying, relax, Alice. The chaos isn't a mistake. It's the whole point.
That is a total flip of the script. We usually think the crazy person is the one who's seeing things that aren't there. But the cat suggests the crazy person is the one trying to pretend everything is orderly and makes sense when it's clearly not.
Right. He is the perfect guide to the subconscious because he isn't afraid of the dark. He can disappear and come back, leaving just his wisdom behind.
But there is one character who is definitely afraid of the dark, or at least she's terrified of losing control of it. We have to talk about the Queen of Hearts.
The tyrant of emotion.
I love that name for her. The source describes her as ruling through fear and cheery. Her catchphrase, obviously, off with their heads.
Yeah.
But the source does something really interesting here. It reframes her. It says she isn't a villain in the traditional.
No, she's not a villain. She is a part of Alice. Remember, we have to keep coming back to this fundamental idea. Wonderland is the theater of Alice's mind. So if that's true, who is the queen?
She must be a part of Alice, too.
The source frames her as the embodiment of rage, ego, and the desperate need to command an uncontrollable...
The desperate need to command an uncontrollable world?
Yeah.
That sounds like the ultimate control freak. And it also sounds very familiar.
It is. She is the id and the superego clashing in a violent, screaming explosion. But let's look deeper at her catchphrase, off with their heads.
It's just so violent, so final.
It's violent, but what does decapitation represent, metaphor? The head is the seat of reason, the seat of logic, the seat of speech. The queen screams off with their heads whenever someone annoys her or confuses her or dares to challenge her authority.
So she's trying to silence them. She's trying to eliminate reason.
She represents repression. She is our internal tyrant. I mean, think about your own mind. When you have a thought you don't, maybe a jealous thought or a weird intrusive thought or a moment of deep insecurity, what do?
I try to push it down. I try to ignore it. I tell myself, don't think that. That's a stupid thought.
Exactly. You scream off with its head. Yeah. You try to execute the thought. You try to kill the emotion. The queen is that brutal, childish voice in all of us that refuses to negotiate with reality. She wants the roses to be red, but they are white. So what does she do? Does she accept the white roses?
No, she makes her servants paint them red.
She paints them red. It's the ultimate act of denial. It is covering up reality with a fragile, fake facade.
She's terrified of the truth. She's terrified of things being imperfect, so she paints over them and then threatens to kill anyone who notices the paint is dripping.
Yeah, she represents the darker emotions we try to suppress, but because we suppress them, they just get louder and louder. She is screaming because Alice has been too polite for too long.
And this all culminates in the trial, which the source calls a mockery of reason and a theater of absurdity.
The trial is the climax of the entire psychological journey. And it's so important to note what the trial is even about. Who stole the tarts?
It's so trivial, it's ridiculous. Someone ate some pastry.
Exactly. It's a trivial crime, but look at the machinery of justice they've built around. They have a jury, a judge, the king. They have witnesses. They have evidence. They are trying to apply the rigid structure of the adult world, the courtroom, to the absolute chaos of Wonderland.
And it fails. It fails miserably. The evidence is a poem that makes no sense whatsoever. The witnesses, like the Hatter, they know nothing.
It mirrors how society so often disguises madness with order. We have all these bureaucratic rules, all these adult systems, all this paperwork and etiquette, but the source points out that this scene shows Alice finally realizing that the emperor has no clue.
She sees the adults arguing over tarts.
She sees them making up the rules on the spot. Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court.
And Alice challenges it. This is a huge moment for her. She says, that's not a regular rule. You invented it just now.
That is the moment of awakening. It's not the waking up in the grass later. It's this moment, the psychological awakening. She realizes that the authority figures, the king, the queen, the whole system, they're just a pack of cards.
You're nothing but a pack of cards. That's her big line.
It is the destruction of the illusion. The illusion of reason completely collapses for her in that moment. She realizes that the fear she had of the queen, the confusion she had with the Hatter, it was all based on her accepting their power as real. Once she realizes they are just paper, just two-dimensional concepts with no real depth.
They can't hurt her anymore.
They have no power over her, and that's the breaking point. The dream unravels, the whole world spins, the voices melt away, and she wakes up.
She wakes up.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move to part 6, the awakening and integration. Because usually the it was all a dream ending it's the worst ending in storytelling history. It feels like a total cheat. But the source argues that here, it's not a reset button.
No, it is not a reset. It's an integration. The source emphasizes a really crucial... She does not wake up in defeat. She wakes up in revel.
Like how so? She's back on the riverbank. Her sister is there. Everything is seemingly back to normal.
But is it really? The source notes that as she wakes up, the dead leaves fluttering around her face were the playing cards from the dream just a moment before. The sounds of the barnyard are mixing with the sounds of the dream creatures, and the source says the garden now shimmers with magic.
So Wonderland never truly left her.
It's now a part of her perception of the real world. The source says Wonderland was a mirror, a riddle, and a sanctuary for the parts of us that refuse to grow in straight. I just love that imagery, refusing to grow in straight lines. Yeah. That is the core philosophy here. The Victorian era wanted children, and especially young girls, to grow and be polite, be quiet, be logical, be a wife, be predictable. But Alice has seen the wild garden of the self. She has seen the madness.
And she's not afraid of it.
To wake up in revelation means she carries the wisdom of the cat, the warning of the rabbit and the eternal question of the caterpillar back into her wake. She's not the same girl who fell down.
Camp. She knows now that logic is fragile. She knows that identity is fluid. She knows that authority figures are often just people making up rules as they go. She has integrated the shadow. She has met her inner queen and her inner hatter, and she survived them.
She looked them in the eye and said, "You're just a pack of cards."
So what does this all mean for us? For a listener right now who is maybe driving to work or folding laundry or sitting in their own version of a boring Victorian afternoon, why does this matter?
It matters because we are all allies. The source synthesizes this lesson so it says growing up isn't about mastering order. We think being an adult means having a clean house and a balanced checkbook and a 5-year plan.
That's certainly what I was told. That's the goal.
But Nostalgic Symphony argues that true maturity, real adulthood, is about learning to live gracefully within the unknown. It's about accepting the chaos, not defeating it.
So that confusion we feel sometimes, that feeling of not knowing who we are, that's not failure. It is transformation.
Exactly. We spend so much energy trying to figure everything out, trying to answer who am I with a definitive job title or a relationship status. We try to beat the clock like the rabbit. We try to suppress our anger like the queen, but the source tells us that madness is not a curse. It is freedom from the ordinary.
That is a radical permission slip to be a little bit messy, to not have all the answers.
It is. It's a permission slip to not know who you are today, to accept that you might be a different person tomorrow, to accept that the world doesn't always make sense. And that's not just okay, it's the way.
The trembling joy of uncertainty. That was a phrase the source used that really stuck with me.
It reframes the entire experience of being alive. Instead of anxiety, which is trembling fear of the unknown, you can have trembling joy. You can look at the unknown and say, I wonder what happens next, instead of I hope nothing goes wrong. It's a shift from fear to curiosity.
And the source ends with a really provocative promise. It says that inside every question, inside every moment of being lost, there is beauty. There is meaning. There is you.
And that is the promise of the subconscious. If you are brave enough to fall down your own rabbit hole, to really look at your fears, your weirdness, your dream, you find yourself. Not the polite, polished version of yourself that society wants you to be, but the real, shimmering, mad, wonderful version.
So here's our challenge to you, listen. Where are you trying too hard to be logical? Where are you acting like the white rabbit, checking your watch and panicking about being late to your own life? Where are you painting the roses red because you can't deal with the truth of a situation?
Maybe it's time to listen to the Cheshire Cat. Maybe it's time to fade out, to smile at the absurdity of it all, to realize that we are all mad here. And that is actually a wonderful, liberating thing.
Because in the end, the madness isn't something to be cured. It's the truth.
It's the only truth that really matters.
And on that note, we're going to leave you to your own rabbit holes. Don't be afraid to fall. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Keep falling.